Alright, boys and girls, we are almost out of the 20th century. We've got two 90s adaptations to look at, the first of which is from 1998 called Alice Through the Looking Glass starring Kate Beckinsale. How does it hold up anyway? Well, don't touch that dial now, we're just getting started. Of the two Alice books, Through the Looking Glass has the fewest adaptations. Several characters and incidents such as the Tweedles, the Jabberwocky, Humpty Dumpty, the White Knight, the White Queen, and the Red Queen have been included in adaptations of the first book, but not the second. As such, most people haven't read Through the Looking Glass and don't have mental images from film and television that they can easily refer to. Nonetheless, in 1998, a made-for-TV adaptation of Through the Looking Glass was made starring Kate Beckinsale as Alice. As far as adaptations go, this is probably the best adaptation of Through the Looking Glass that I've seen. But as we're all aware by now, there's a huge difference between good movie and good adaptation. The framing of this narrative is an interesting one. Kate Beckinsale starts off as an adult mother reading the story to her child and barely staying awake.
Mom. Sorry.
Every parent in the entire world can relate to that, I'm sure. Kate Beckinsale's daughter tells her to go to the looking glass and look into it in order to see the world that's on the other side. But she tells her that she has to believe in it in order to see it.
You're not looking hard enough. You got to believe it before you can see it.
She'll make a great cult leader someday, won't she? Clearly being severely sleep-deprived, Kate Beckinsale goes through the looking glass and suddenly takes on the role of Alice. From there, the story matches up with the book pretty much line for line, scene for scene, which is quite remarkable for a book that isn't as ingrained in the popular consciousness. However, this does produce some awkward moments every now and again. What do I mean by that? Well, on paper, the casting of Alice seems like a good choice. Kate Beckinsale is an Oxford-educated actress who has done Shakespeare a few times, but she ends up being horrifically miscast. Beckinsale's line delivery makes it seem like she's sleepwalking her way through the whole thing.
I don't rejoice in insects at all, because I'm rather afraid of them. Then I'll have one, please. They mightn't be at all nice, you know. I suppose you wouldn't have two pudding courses in one dinner.
Granted, the mother version of her is asleep, and maybe the idea is that she's reacting to things as if she were in a dream. The very end of Through the Looking Glass says that life is but a dream after all. But there's something about her performance that comes across as sleepy and disinterested, rather than curious and intrigued by what she's seeing around her. However, there's also a much bigger problem. They kept the dialogue from the book intact, which makes it extra weird when this stunningly gorgeous adult woman says that she's
7.5 exactly.
Yeah, I know she's taking on the role of Alice in her dream, but still, it's really distracting. On a positive note, you get to see Ian Holm, who played Lewis Carroll in Dreamchild, play the White Knight in this version. He really gets to cover both sides of the spectrum in these two roles. In Dreamchild, he played a real-life person who may or may not have been attracted to a little girl, but was doing a lot of creepy things by modern standards. Here, he plays a fictional knight who is so awkwardly virtuous that he makes nothing of the fact that Kate Beckinsale is standing right in front of him. Oh wait, she's
7.5 exactly.
Right.
Awkward casting aside, the sequencing of events lines up with the book so well, and the adherence to the text is admirable, up to and including the famous deleted scene from the book that they reinsert into this film. The original text had an omitted chapter known as the Wasp in a Wig. Lewis Carroll removed it from the book because his illustrator, John Tenniel, said that it was dull and could be excised. I would tend to agree, but still, it's cool to see this famous deleted scene from the book realized in its most faithful adaptation. This film aired in 1998, when the world was going through a lot of 30 years later nostalgia for the late 60s. As a result, there are a lot of attempts to replicate the feel of a late 60s film. Some of these homages work better than others. I like it when Alice talks to herself, and I appreciate this version of Tweedledee and Tweedledum, who look like they should be scrapping against Alex DeLarge and his three droogs.
You agree to have a battle? I suppose so.
And not scrap any time you say.
But the most notable moments of 60s trippiness are the deliberate attempts to not follow visual continuity, as evidenced by Alice's wildly changing hairstyles from scene to scene. But as good of an adaptation as Alice Through the Looking Glass is, it can be a bit slow and plodding, though nowhere near as bad as other overly faithful adaptations that we've looked at. It's simply due to the fact that Alice's Adventures in Wonderland is a more memorable book than Through the Looking Glass is, with more memorable characters and moments. And yet, Through the Looking Glass was actually the more popular of the two books when it was first published, if you can believe it. Maybe the fact that both books are usually published together as a single volume made the name Alice in Wonderland stick into the popular consciousness and the first book get all the credit. Who knows? Overall, I would recommend checking out this version of Alice Through the Looking Glass. Even though it doesn't entirely work, it is a faithful adaptation that would make for a good mental image to refer back to when you read the book. How about that, Cheshire? We actually did it! We found a good adaptation of Through the Looking Glass. I didn't think it would happen there for a while, but we pulled through. Now stay tuned tomorrow because we're looking at the 1999 adaptation, which was actually the last adaptation that would endeavor to be a faithful rendition of the original text that Lewis Carroll wrote. Everything else that came afterward would be some kind of derivative or unofficial sequel. Stay tuned for the 1999 version coming up tomorrow.